June 1942. The Pacific was engulfed in war. The Japanese Imperial Navy seemed unstoppable. Their conquests stretched from Malaysia to the Philippines, and their air and naval power threatened the very existence of the American presence in the Pacific. After early defeats, including Pearl Harbor and the fall of Guadalcanal, the United States faced a moment of crisis. Yet even in the darkest hours, sparks of hope emerged. American cryptographers at the secret station, Hypo in Hawaii, achieved a breakthrough. They had broken the Japanese naval code, JN-25. They now knew not only the date, but also the location of the planned Japanese attack. Admiral Chester W. Nimitz, commander of the Pacific Fleet, recognized a unique opportunity to change the course of the war. The Japanese plan was bold yet simple: lure the remaining American aircraft carriers into a trap near Midway Atoll and crush them, securing total dominance in the Pacific. But thanks to intelligence, the Americans were ready. Nimitz prepared an ambush, a hidden grouping of ships and carriers poised to strike first. Every detail was planned: aircraft positions, patrol routes, timing of attacks. At dawn on June 4th, the skies over Midway were already alive with tension. Japanese dive bombers and torpedo planes headed toward the island, aiming to destroy airfields and infrastructure. But American pilots from the USS Enterprise, USS Hornet, and USS Yorktown were already in the air, searching for the Japanese fleet. For hours, reconnaissance planes scanned the vast ocean, and every moment could be a pilot's last. Aircraft engaged in fierce dogfights, searching for vulnerabilities. On the decks of American ships, alarms sounded as engines roared. Every second was critical. One mistake could cost hundreds of lives and change the outcome of the battle. It was in this moment, with both fleets on the verge of confrontation, that a deadly game of survival began. One that would decide not just the fate of Midway, but the entire Pacific War. Early morning, June 4th, 1942, brought tense skies over the Pacific. Japanese dive bombers and torpedo planes approached Midway. Their mission clear: strike hard and eliminate American resistance. On land and at sea, Americans were ready. Torpedo bombers, Douglas TBD. Devastator and dive bombers, SBD. Dauntless climbed into the air, engines roaring, pilots and gunners checking weapons. Every minute of waiting was agonizing. The Japanese attacks began with strikes on Midway's airfields. Explosions tore through buildings. Clouds of smoke and dust rose. But American anti-aircraft fire was effective, shooting down many enemy planes. On the island, dozens were killed or wounded, yet the base endured. Meanwhile, American pilots, guided by intelligence, scoured the ocean for Japanese carriers. The pivotal moment came when dive bombers located the first target, Akagi. From high altitude, they dove straight onto the flight deck, releasing bombs with breathtaking precision. Explosions rocked the carrier, flames engulfed aircraft, and panic spread across the deck. Next, Kaga and Soryu were targeted. American pilots remained calm under heavy anti-aircraft fire, striking each carrier with deadly accuracy. Once mighty symbols of the Imperial Navy began to burn. Fires spread across decks, munitions detonated, and ships listed heavily on the verge of sinking. Meanwhile, Hiryu, still operational, launched a counterattack. Torpedo planes targeted USS Yorktown, inflicting damage. But American forces quickly regrouped, preparing for the final assault. On this critical day, the fate of the Pacific hung by a thread. One mistake, one miscalculation, could have resulted in disaster. But thanks to intelligence, courage, and determination, the Americans were ready to deliver strikes that would become legendary as the beginning of the miracle at Midway. By noon on June 4th, 1942, the turning point of the Pacific War had arrived. American dive bombers from USS Enterprise and USS Yorktown finally located the Japanese strike force in the open ocean. Their targets, the carriers Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, symbols of Imperial Japan's naval power. The first strike hit Akagi. From high above, dauntless dive bombers released their 1,000-pound bombs with deadly precision. Explosions tore through the flight deck, setting planes ablaze. Panic spread across the ship, but the Japanese crew fought to maintain control. Soon, Akagi became a blazing inferno, smoke and fire rising dozens of feet into the sky. Next was Kaga. Despite heavy anti-aircraft fire, American pilots hit the hangars, detonating aircraft and munitions. The carrier began to list and eventually sank beneath the waves, leaving nothing but burning debris. Then came Soryu. Dive bombers struck again, hitting the flight deck and igniting massive fires. Explosions echoed across the ocean, sending plumes of smoke high into the air. Finally, Hiryu, still capable of flight operations, attempted a counterattack. Its planes struck USS Yorktown, causing damage. But American pilots located Hiryu and delivered devastating strikes, ultimately sinking the carrier. By the end of the day, 4 Japanese carriers, symbols of naval dominance, were gone. The U.S. Navy, despite losses, achieved a strategic victory that would shift the balance of power in the Pacific. Courage, intelligence, and precise execution made the impossible possible. The miracle at Midway had arrived. As the smoke cleared over the Pacific, the scale of the victory became clear. 4 powerful Japanese carriers, Akagi,
Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, were destroyed,
and the Imperial Navy's striking power was severely diminished. The Americans had secured a decisive strategic advantage. Losses were not absent on the American side. USS Yorktown suffered damage during Hiryu's counterattack, and many pilots and crew members lost their lives. But intelligence, strategy, and courage allowed the U.S. to maintain the initiative. The bravery of pilots, many knowingly facing near certain death, became a symbol of heroism. Admiral Nimitz understood the full significance of the victory. Japan's fleet could no longer operate freely in the Pacific. The initiative now belonged to the Allies, opening the path for counterattacks and eventual island-hopping campaigns. For Japan, the loss was devastating. Losing 4 carriers and hundreds of aircraft forced a strategic reevaluation and a more defensive approach. For the Americans, it was a turning point that shifted momentum and morale. Midway demonstrated that intelligence, planning, and human courage could overcome numerical superiority. The battle became a case study in military strategy and heroism, showing that even against a stronger opponent, careful preparation and decisive action could achieve victory. When the last smoke cleared over the Pacific, the Battle of Midway was recognized as one of the most significant naval engagements of World War II. 4 Japanese carriers, Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, were gone, and the Imperial Navy had lost its overwhelming striking power. The Americans had not only won a battle but had gained a strategic advantage that would shape the Pacific War for years. This victory was the result of multiple factors. Most importantly, breaking Japanese codes gave the U.S. crucial intelligence. Without it, American forces could never have prepared such a precise and effective ambush. Every decision by Admiral Nimitz, every bomb dropped by pilots, every maneuver by the fleet contributed to the outcome. The soldiers and pilots displayed extraordinary courage. Torpedo bomber crews dove toward flaming flight decks, and dive bomber pilots struck Japanese carriers under intense anti-aircraft fire. Their bravery became emblematic of the American spirit. Japan's losses had long-term consequences. Losing 4 carriers and hundreds of aircraft forced a defensive posture, while the Americans expanded their power and began a series of counteroffensives, reclaiming territory across the Pacific. The miracle at Midway was more than a single victory. It was a turning point. It proved that strategy, intelligence, and bravery could overcome even the most formidable enemy. Today, Midway is studied in military academies as an example of brilliant planning and heroism. The pilots, commanders, and sailors who fought that day left a legacy that changed history. Midway remains a legend, a symbol of hope and the power of human courage. It proved that in the darkest times, preparation and determination could indeed change the course of the world. One day, one decision and one action had altered the fate of history forever.